Alright, hello and welcome. Today we're going to take a look at HyperRandom. So I had a video where I looked in detail at all the maps that MegaRandom can generate, and there's also a Spirit of the Law video that came out not that long ago that was also looking at MegaRandom. I'll probably link both of those. And in that context, some people have wondered, how does HyperRandom actually work? And that's what we're going to look at today. It's not the same as MegaRandom. MegaRandom, as we saw, has basically 40 odd sort of maps or templates in them, and picked one of those, and we looked at all of those in detail. That's not how HyperRandom does it. So we're going to see how HyperRandom works, but first we actually need to figure out where to get it, because HyperRandom is a mod. You can go to your mods, you can look for Hyper, you'll find it there as the most downloaded one that has Hyper in the name, and you subscribe to it. I'm already subscribed. And then if you actually wanted to play a match on HyperRandom, what you do is you go to your skirmish or whatever your lobby, and then under location for the map, you have to go to custom. So all the standard maps under standard, real world maps under real world, special, and custom is basically everything else that people have made. And then you look for, you can search. And I have a couple different versions here, just very briefly. So this is the standard version here. Wait, I want to look at the others. Don't go away. I have this light version, which basically doesn't do any crazy shenanigans with your starting resources and starting units. You'll basically have a standard AoE2 start. The map itself, the layout and everything will be random, but you'll have, standard starting conditions. Your boars will have the normal amount of food, etc. And then what I also have is I have a couple different varieties that sort of restrict the types of maps that can generate. So land will never have any sort of water on it. We also have here with the light version, also the land version. The no islands is sort of what you want to pick if you don't want to play a full water map. It basically generates every kind of map except that players will always be connected. So on a water map, there'll be some sort of shallows, and you won't get a Misc map either. There'll be some sort of passage there as well. So if you are fine with hybrid maps, but you don't really want to play a full water map, that's what you want to select. Then we have Nomad. This will always give you Nomad starts. We have Walled, which is always going to give you walls, and it's also only going to be a land map. I don't allow hybrid or water walled in this one. And then we have Water, which will always try to make a water map, and then 256 text, which comes with a built-in 256 text mode activated. And the AIs can also research them multiple times. But that's not really what I want to talk about. I sort of want to actually take a look at how HyperRandom works behind the scenes. As we said, MegaRandom had 40-odd templates, and then randomized resources on top of that. HyperRandom doesn't do that. You can't look at the script and say, there's a specific map I really liked, I want to, find that one again. That's not so easy, but in order to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up some code. Give me a second. There we go. Plop, you should see a notepad window. If you guys want to follow along there, you can. It's sort of just also for me to follow along on my side as well. So to start out with, generate. We can just generate a couple. I'll just generate them sort of in the background as I talk about this. So HyperRandom has a bunch of comments at the top. That doesn't matter. And then I have these different map styles that we saw in the skirmish menu there. Basically, the map selection screen. These are just quick switches that I've built in so I can make the different versions all using the same code. I don't have to go edit things in a billion places. But if we continue on, we'll see there's some more sort of details on things. We have a 10% chance of selecting walls, but we don't do that if we have Nomad. 10% chance of selecting Nomad. We could change these chances if we wanted to, and then so on. We have to sort of choose what type of map we want. Do we want a land map, a forest map, a water map? And that then leads to more subtypes. Like a land map or land-based map is any map where sort of the main part of the terrain is land. That's kind of the maps that you'd expect for that. But also things like Baltic or Ghost Lake that have some sort of lake on them, those are still, they're still, you know, based on the land terrain. Water-based maps is anything that has water or specifically has water separating the players usually. Things like rivers, something that has water on the outside too, like coastal or continental. It's theoretically like that. Nomad. And then a forest-based map is anything like Black Forest or Misc or Amazon Tunnel, where you have a lot of forest everywhere. So that's just sort of choosing what style of map we can have, because we're not picking. There's no set of 40 maps here. We're sort of deciding each parameter for the map randomly. Just move on a bit. So I have basically some seasons, which we can look at here. So I have, you can call them, I'm calling them biomes. You can call them seasons, themes, whatever, terrain sets. We have ranging from cold to warmer. We have polar, taiga, alpine, highland, temperate, autumn, snow, jungle, tropical, savanna, desert, high desert, mangrove, and wasteland. So basically each of those will determine what kind of terrain set you have, what kind of trees you have, what kind of animals you have, and then a couple of them also influence the type of map that generates. Sort of with HyperRandom, like what HyperRandom does as well, where on the desert maps you'll have the quicksand, and on the frozen maps the water will be frozen. HyperRandom does things similar to that, not quite the same, but on the very cold maps the water can be frozen, it's not guaranteed to be, and on some of the desert maps the water, like here it's partially frozen, you can see. And on some of the desert maps, some of the water will be replaced by sand terrain, so you'll have less water than you would on other maps. And then on the mangrove swamp map, basically a lot of the terrain is replaced by buildable mangrove terrain. And I spent a lot of time actually putting together terrain sets that looked nice, where, you know, believable blends of terrain to sort of make it look realistic. So let's keep moving down the code. You guys can see this, right? Yeah. So we pick one of these biomes, I'm calling them, and each biome then defines a bunch of terrains. So we have polar, taiga, blah. Each of them defines different terrains to use. Some of them have multiple choices, like here on the temperate biome we have different combinations of forests we can use. The details here don't matter, just the general idea that we're selecting these themes or biomes. So we just sort of zoom through all of those. Then we select an animal set that fits with a biome we have. We have alpine animals here. That's a different set than the temperate animals, and that's a different set from the jungle animals. So once we've done all of that selection, then we're ready to actually start setting up things for the map. Like all of that before was just sort of like pre-selecting what look the map should have visually. But if we go on, we can select here, we're doing some more things, whether or not we should give resources when we have Nomad. I think at this point I'm always giving enough resources to build a TC, unless you start with a packed town center, in which case you don't need those resources because you can unpack the town center. Then we just modify some other things for fun because we can, like the style of Gaia buildings, if there are any, which civilization Gaia is using for those, for example. We decide what kind of things we might want to put in the middle. We decide to modify the starting resources maybe a little bit. We don't have to. Some code here for respawning resources, but that's not something that's currently active. zoom on a bit. Most of this is just sort of setting up. Here we're setting up the units that could spawn from the monument, making sure that they actually can spawn there by giving them a location and so on, giving them a hotkey, giving them a description. Move on a bit. Okay, land generation. Now we're actually making the map itself. So we'll generate another couple here, just for interest. So land generation, basically here, I talked about this earlier, we now execute based on what type of base we want on the map to start with. Like this one here is a water-based map that we can see. So there's water on the outside, there's water in the gaps, and then we've placed land on top of that. This is just a land map with some forest in the corners. This is also a water-based map. This is another land map. This is a forest-based map. You see the forest on the outside, forest sort of separating the players. This is a water map, water-based map, land-based map, water-based map, and so on. Land-based map. So let's continue on. Then I have some code here that talks about a special center. That's sort of, there's a small chance, you'll have seen that if you've played HyperRandom, that you can have like a land in the middle where you have on a hill, say, a neutral marker that you can trade with, or a pile of relics, or very occasionally even a monument that you can capture and train units from. We have some code to make sure that happens, and then we start deciding things. Basically, we have percent chance of choosing how big different things will be, what types of borders it'll have, whether there's going to be a lake in the middle, and if there is a lake, is it going to be a small lake, a medium lake, or a large one? Or maybe it's not going to be a lake, maybe it's going to be a forest, or maybe it's going to be a hill. But ultimately, we decide, we put down the players, and then we can decide to put something in the middle, and then we can decide to put something in the corners, and we can decide to put something in the edges. I'm just going to zoom on through the code a bit. That was the corners and edges. So let's take a look and see if we can make some examples of that stuff. Here we just have 2 players. This is in the middle. So we basically placed an area in the middle. This area in the middle is also land, and it's between the 2 players. Here we also have land in the middle, except it's on a water map, so we sort of have an island in the middle, and you'll notice that this one has a lot of berries and stuff on it. Let's see if we can find something else. Here we've placed only a small island in the middle. Here we placed a forest in the middle. Here we've placed a lake in the middle and put an island on top of that. Here we've placed islands in the corners. So it's set up that you can generate something in each corner, and when it's a 1v1 map or some sort of map with balanced teams, then the corners will also be balanced. You won't get 2 corners on one side and none on the other. If you're playing a free-for-all or something with unbalanced teams, then those restrictions don't apply, because I'm sort of assuming that you're in a more casual setting then, and you might enjoy more variety. So at that point you could have, 3 corners and one person has more fish but doesn't have another corner. And so we have these 4 corners as potential spots. We have the 4 sides. I'll see if I can get a side map. Generates. Here we have 2 corners. This is not as fair, but still looks nice. So we have the 4 corners available. We have the middle. There we go. That was talking about the neutral island. Basically, all of these things have sort of have a chance of appearing, and then it sort of tries to be intelligent about it in the code. Like I say, all right, if we have a huge island in the middle, then don't also give huge corners. But if the thing in the middle is smaller, then the chance of corners can be higher. So on. See if I can get one with side lands. Currently, I'm not seeing anything on the sides. Keep going. There's one in the middle again. There's our Socotra forest. So if you generate a lot of these, as I'm doing in the scenario editor, you'll start to notice templates. You'll start to notice things that look, not templates, but you see the same archetypes of maps appearing again. It's not like HyperRandom, it's not like MegaRandom where there's a specific, where there's a specific map pack and you can go to that map and look at it. but there are certain elements that can or that could generate in maps or not, and after a while you'll start to notice the presence of those types of elements. Like this here is a double center island start, where the center is split into two parts. You'll see that a couple times. This is a double forest that's split, not as clear. Here we have 4 corners. I still want to get one with the sides so I can show you guys. Let's keep going a bit. Yeah, this one here has corners and sides. So it has these things in the corners, and on the side it has sort of this shallow ice terrain with more fish in it. So you also have the option of taking, 2 or 4, or if you don't have even teams, 3 or 1 of these sides here and putting something there too. That could be water, it could be shallows, it could be a forest. That just depends. We have 2 corners again, and we have neutral markets in the corners. And night terrain, just because. Yeah, okay, here we have 4 sort of the Budapest style for lakes on the sides. So let's continue. We don't want to get too hung up on this. So elevation generation, this just determines how many hills there are. There can be more or less hills. It tries to be smart about it. Again, on water maps, you don't want as many hills. On forest maps, you don't want as many hills, but if there's land, then there's more room for hills. So on, that's not too complicated. Sometimes you get hills on water because ships can use terrain bonuses. Elevation bonuses, I mean. And then there can be cliffs, like here on this map we actually do have some cliffs. If it's an islands map or any map where there isn't much room, then I don't allow cliffs. Because we kind of do want to have enough room for stuff. So let's keep going. Cliffs, then we have terrain. So terrain is basically where all of this stuff, like here's some jungle terrain, forest, where forests and like the ground cover is implemented. And most of what terrains will be chosen have already been predetermined based on the biome. And the amount of forest is random, but the randomness depends... Where are we? Okay, color correction doesn't matter. The amount of forest depends on how much room there is. So I say if there's nothing in the middle, like no island or lake or mountain or something, then there's more room for forest than if you have something in the middle, and if that's bigger, then there's even less room to put forest on the outside. So I try to make it a bit adaptive to avoid situations where you're just completely covered in trees or just starved for any sort of forests. So it's random, but random within sensible ranges depending on what's generated so far. Then I have some code here that colors hills. Let's see if I can find a good example of that. Basically, I find it makes sense to color hills, at least when they're tall, so that you can see them on the minimap. So by using a different terrain, I'm going to have to keep going to find one. Whenever I want to see something, we don't see it suddenly. You will have noticed this as well if you play HyperRandom. Come on. Basically, if there are tall hills, this is not a particularly tall hill, but it's tall enough to start triggering this, where I use a different terrain on tall hills so that you can see where the hills are on the minimap. If you play HyperRandom, you might have noticed that. If not, that's an inside tip for you now. I'm sure we'll see more examples of it later. We can... let's generate a couple more. Don't crash the game. Yeah, like this one here is an extreme example, where there are a bunch of hills generated. So players are stuck in these craters. And the green areas are the low ones, and here the brown is sort of the elevated part. Alright, we can move on through the code. There's the option to place pawns, but of course if you choose one of the, there's certain cases when you don't want to have pawns, so I exclude those and so on. And then we have just some things to make it look nice, like I make my water terrain sort of get shallower to deeper. A couple different styles for how that can happen. Here, we have a central lake, that's cool. On sort of a very gravelly map with forests on the outside. That's nice. Alright, we have another desert map. Yeah, different water styles. That's mostly cosmetic. We'll talk about that in a moment. Alright, scroll, 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 scroll. Then we have a section called connection generation. Now if you don't know about map scripting, just briefly, it's what creates these shallows between players. It can also be used to create roads in a team game. I have HyperRandom generates roads between teammates, and will generate passages through a forest on a forest map. So I have some logic there to choose what needs to be connected. Do we need to connect teammates? Do we need to connect everyone? Do we need to connect everything? If we're doing an island style map where we want like a full water map, then of course we don't actually want to connect, we don't actually want to make these shallows. Or if we're doing Misc, then we don't want to replace any forest because we actually want to have Misc. The chance of Misc is pretty low. But here, this map would be Misc if we didn't replace the forest that was here and open it up so there's a path. Here we have the different colored hills again as an example. See if I can find a full water map. They're not super common because I know people don't like to play water that much. I think the actual chance is less than 10% unless you play the specific water version. Here another example of the hills being colored. I don't know, like full islands is possible. Oh, ooh, look at this madness. Alright, well, I'll just keep this madness on while we keep talking. So we have the connection code, and that's just a bunch of copy-paste, mostly, to decide when to replace which terrains to open up passages. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Objects generation. So objects are basically all the stuff you see on the map. Forests have already been placed, but everything else, straggler trees, resources, town centers, walls, animals, relics, all of that stuff is an object, and all of that stuff is placed in this section, which takes up, you can't see the scroll bar, but this is still like we're only halfway through the script. Mostly I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but a lot of this is chosen randomly, so we just move on a bit. We have some code that chooses what type of stuff we would have guarding the monument if there's a monument in the middle. And that code I originally developed for playing Battle Royale, because HyperRandom does support Battle Royale. So there's like a dead scout here. Oh, that's interesting. Let me take a screenshot of that, so that I have the map seed for later on. Figure out why there's that dead. That is definitely some sort of dead unit that should be a scout. Although we already have an eagle scout. What the heck is that doing there? I'll have to investigate, but not right now. So anyway, objects are sort of... Okay, yeah, we were right. We were looking at the sort of... I have a bunch of different sets of Gaia units that could be used for Battle Royale maps. I don't know, can we even show Battle Royale here? I think not. I mean, I could technically, if I do something like this and just for fun. Define Battle Royale. But yeah, if you choose Battle Royale in the lobby, HyperRandom will generate a map suitable for Battle Royale. So keep that in mind if you ever want to play it. Play it with 8 people though, not with 2 people. And then you have the different fine selection of Gaia units that I've considered as possible options to defend stuff. And you have your typical camps that you would see on the official Battle Royale maps as well. But we are going to undo that. Save changes. There we go. Alright, let's not have a night map. Okay, so let's go on. Actually, we can look at the players. That's a pretty standard-ish start. Now I need to go back to where I was, which was somewhere around here. Yeah, we had all the Battle Royale stuff. Then, yeah, it actually gets placed. That's not so interesting. Then I have still Battle Royale. Then I have some code for Dark Age Empire Wars, which is basically a 9TC start. So if you choose Empire Wars with HyperRandom and you're in Dark Age and not Feudal Age, you'll get a 9TC start. Just putting that out there. Plus, you'll get, I think I'm giving you a lumber camp even. Is that true? Yeah, okay, I'm giving you a mill, a lumber camp, 9 villagers, a couple houses. Alright, then I have Feudal Age Empire Wars, which is sort of the standard Empire Wars. It gives you the standard Empire Wars stuff. We're not actually going to look at that now. Although we could if we, see if I can do that. Secondary game mode, yes. Go. Alright, that's the Dark Age Empire Wars because currently in Dark Age. Actually, I'm not giving you 9 villagers. I'm giving you 12 villagers, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15 villagers. 15. I should know my own map a bit better. I guess that makes sense, though. I think I calculated if you want sort of an end of Dark Age number of villagers, this is the number of villagers where players then have to decide whether they want to go to Feudal or keep booming in Dark Age. We want to disable that again. This video is probably getting a bit long. I hope it's still interesting for you guys. So then we have our standard resources. So we can, if we choose standard starting units, then we just end up with the things that you'll normally get on an Age of Empires 2 map. I have that in there. That's basically for the light version of the map, where you place all the standard stuff and nothing special. And then I have a separate set of code where we do more complicated, and we choose, you know, here from any possible, or from a lot of different units, a potential scout. We have a huge list of potential scouting units. However, it's set up so that it will only choose more powerful scouts if you have at least some sort of walls, and it will only choose like hero scouts when you have actual like stone walls or better. I also have some code like this here that makes sure that you have enough houses that you don't start housed. I don't know if it's always if it always works, but I think it's generally set up like if you have extra villagers, then it will automatically tell the code that it needs more houses, and that I think it's pretty robust. Keep going, need more housing, yeah, okay. Then I have a bunch of potential starting buildings you can get. You have a very small chance of any specific one, but you can get them. And we'll see, like here you have a yurt. Yurt is more of a common type of thing. Here we have some walls and a boat. There should also be some code for starting boats. Yeah, here, the starting boats. I fixed that up recently and cleaned it up a bit. Then if we move on, I think the next thing is basically talking about, well, relic placement, yeah, and then the actual resources, and it's a lot of code. We're sort of going to skip through all of that. And there's changelog at the end. So, in conclusion, I guess you've seen it because we kind of scrolled through. There is no one, there are no individual maps. It's basically, it's one map that where everything, all the parameters are selected with some sort of biased random to try and fit things that are somewhat fair and that will work together nicely. So that's HyperRandom for you. I wonder if there's anything else I wanted to show you guys. And of course, you can play it with team games, you can play it, you can play Empire Wars, you can play Battle Royale. I showed that to you. And it's clearly different from MegaRandom. We can just finish off by taking a look at MegaRandom again. Well, MegaRandom, as we saw in the past, sort of has these specific maps that it can generate. It has the 40-some maps, and then it picks one of them, while HyperRandom sort of combines different elements of things that can be on the map, like a lake in the middle or things in the corners, and just randomly puts those together rather than having sort of a curated map pack. Now, the MegaRandom approach does have the advantage that you can ensure a greater level of balance. I wasn't specifically looking for it on HyperRandom, but I'm sure we saw some generations that were of questionable fairness, especially on some of the water maps. I do try hard to make it generally fair, but that can't be guaranteed with the approach that I'm taking. That's why something like Mega Random is perhaps better for the ranked ladder. Although people have said they'd like to see HyperRandom in the ranked ladder, might be a cool thing in the future. Like, I'd be down for it. I'd be willing to work on it some more to, fix up things that need to be done. It's always been a continuous project for me, always working on it some more, so. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too long. I have no idea how long it actually was, but we will see. So thanks for watching. I might put out some more similar themed videos on similar topics soon-ish. We'll see about that. So thanks for listening. Leave any questions, comments, stuff below.